Hello, everyone. This is Devin Thorpe for Your Mark on the World, and I'm excited to have with us a very exciting guest. If you would like $20,000, be sure to pay attention to this guest, because this guest has $20,000 for you if you have the right answer to the question he's looking to solve. Our guest is Nicholas Fusso, the program director for the D Prize. Nick, tell us, well, welcome first. Nick, thank you for joining us.
Devin, thanks for having me.
Tell us how to get the $20,000.
Well, Devin, we're trying to solve a really interesting problem in the world. There are tons and tons of proven poverty interventions. The world has been developing great ways to solve poverty for generations now. But there's still millions of people that don't have access to these simple solutions. You can imagine vaccines. If you grow up in the developed world, you went to public schools, this isn't something you even think about. You've gotten all your vaccines. There's hundreds of millions of people in developing countries that aren't getting vaccinations, not because they don't exist, but because nobody's figured out how to get these vaccinations from the factory to these actual people. We're trying to solve this problem. We're challenging entrepreneurs all over the world to focus on distributing a proven poverty solution. And if you have a great idea for how to get one of these proven solutions into the hands of people that need it, we'll give you up to $20,000 to give it a shot.
Fantastic. Well, why are you focusing on distribution? It seems like an interesting spot in the sort of logistics stream to be focused on distribution. Help us understand why that's the focus.
It absolutely is, and it's the spot nobody's talking about right now. You know, I have a great example for you. So I'm here in San Francisco, and I get to go to a lot of startup pitches where people pitch their great ideas and try to get some money to get going. And I was at one a couple months ago, and there were two people that were working on prosthetic legs, and they had spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to develop the newest, better prosthetic leg for people in developing countries that need them. And they made the point that there are millions of people that need a prosthetic, and right now only 1 in 10 of those people are getting one, and most of them get them through the Red Cross. And so these teams have done an enormous amount of work and spent years and years and a lot of money to develop a new leg. And they were going to get these legs to those 1 out of 10 people that already have one. That's not that good, but it could be better. And nobody's talking about the 9 out of 10 people that still need even the most simplest prosthetic leg. That's why distribution matters. There are proven solutions that exist. There are vaccines and solar lamps and education curriculums and so many more interventions that smart people have developed, and they're not just collecting dust on a shelf. We need to get these out to people that actually need them. So that's why we focus on distribution. We think it is the most direct and quickest way to make impact. You could spend 2 years in a design lab creating a new solution, or you could spend 2 years and reach hundreds of thousands of people. We think it's the best way to actually ignite development.
Well, yeah, and the need goes far beyond hundreds of thousands. There are 3 billion people in the world that most people would consider to be poor, and if you're trying to find ways to help the poor, we've got to find ways to distribute at scale that most of us can't conceive, right? We need to figure out how to reach more people than live in the United States to make a dent in poverty. So what kinds of examples, what kinds of ideas are beginning to percolate as you go through this process?
Well, I want to tell you about one in particular. It's one of our past winners that we are incredibly excited about. It's an organization named Young Love, and they operate out of Botswana in sub-Saharan Africa. And Young Love was started by 2 Fulbright scholars that are from the United States and were living over in Botswana. And they're teaching what's called a sugar daddy awareness class. This is an awesome intervention that nobody is talking about. The sugar daddy class will teach young girls, around 8th grade girls, that having sexual relationships with a much older man puts them at risk. It puts them at risk for HIV infections. 8th grade girls in sub-Saharan Africa are 5 times more likely to have HIV than their male classmates. They're much more at risk for unplanned teen pregnancies. If you're a young teenage girl with an older boyfriend, it's really hard to insist on safe sex or on abstinence or whatever your own personal choice might be. So this class just teaches those girls that there is a risk when it comes with when dating older men. The intervention was developed about 20 years ago. and it has been proven in randomized control trials to reduce unwanted teen pregnancy and HIV infections by 28%. So this 1 hour class can cut these life-altering circumstances by nearly a third. It's an incredible intervention. And this team in Botswana is teaching this class to young girls. They've already reached about 6,000 of these girls since we funded them this spring. So they've been going for about 3 months. They've already had a huge impact, and they have a realistic plan to scale to the whole country in just a couple of years. So these two people, with a little bit of seed capital, are soon going to grow, and they're going to help thousands of girls across an entire country. And I don't think that that's where they're going to stop. I think they're going to keep going.
Well, it is a huge, huge problem, isn't it, that merits not reaching 6,000, not reaching 600,000, but 6 million young girls is what's probably needed to reach the number of 8th grade girls that might otherwise fall prey to this in sub-Saharan Africa, right?
Absolutely. You know, you mentioned a really good point about scale. There are not just hundreds of thousands, not just millions, but in fact billions of people that could have their lives totally changed just by having access to some of these simple solutions. And it's a really big number to think about. When you and I start talking about billions of people, thinking about helping that size can be overwhelming sometimes. And that's one of the reasons that we start small. With D-Prize, our funding goes for a pilot program. So we don't want you to tell us how you're going to help 3 billion people. We want you to tell us how you're going to help a few dozen, or maybe just a few hundred over a couple of months, depending on what your intervention is. Something that's a little bit more bite-sized. It gives you a chance to get out in the field, test some of your assumptions, see if your idea makes sense, and once it does, then you start growing it incrementally so that over time you are starting to help those large numbers.
Yeah. You know, one of the great things when we start to think about scale is that it also creates opportunity. The cost to the world of these billions of poor people is really enormous. And there are ways to monetize, I think, a lot of these interventions, isn't there? Ultimately, it creates opportunities for entrepreneurs who can really deliver value.
Absolutely. I think a great example is another one of our past winners. There's a company named Juabar that operates in Tanzania. Juabar is selling solar lamps, and they are also selling mobile phone charging stations. If you live in rural Tanzania, you might not have an electrical outlet to charge your cell phone, so you might have to spend hours walking to the nearest place to charge. Juabar is solving that problem, and they're selling solar lamps on top of it. What's interesting is the solar lamps that they're selling are one of these proven poverty technologies. So we know that there's high impacts for families that buy a solar lamp. They usually pay for themselves in less than a year. They eliminate fire danger that comes from the traditional kerosene lamps that most people use. But it is providing jobs. One of the things that Juabar tracks is how many people they're hiring from local communities to be these solar lamp and mobile phone charging station salesmen. And those numbers are going up and up and up. So they're providing a lot of local communities with jobs. They're providing households with energy solutions. They're eliminating this fire danger. And they're a for-profit company. They're making money on top of it. So there's a lot of good happening with just distributing this one proven technology solution and getting it to people that need help.
Well, and as you free up people from having to spend 2 or 3 hours a day just to charge a phone, you allow them to become more productive, more self-sufficient, and really redeploy that time for something much more important in all likelihood. So it's a tremendous win across the spectrum, isn't it?
Absolutely. Solar lamps are especially neat. It's cost savings is the first thing that families realize, but they also have a lot more time at night when there's actual light so that they can be productive. So families that buy a solar light, they usually see their household incomes increase by 15 to 30% just because they have more hours in the day to do good things. Children study an additional 2 hours more. When you're a young kid going through school, that's the difference between whether you might graduate or not at the end of your school career. So there's enormous impacts that are happening just from this simple $25 solar lamp.
Yeah, amazing opportunities. Well, tell us about the process. How does one apply for the $20,000 grant for the D-Prize?
Good question. The first thing you should do is go to our website. It's dprize.com, at d-prize.com. We have a number of these proven poverty solutions written up and challenges so that you can start thinking about what type of poverty solution you want to distribute and how you're going to start distributing that. There's a lot of room for creativity. Even when it comes to something like vaccines, we've seen people talking about pricing controls. Economists talk about using different money mechanisms to distribute vaccines more. We see engineers talking about flying them in with drones. So there's still a lot of room for creativity. But the first step is checking out some of these challenges and getting a good base and a good framework to start thinking about the type of organization you're going to start. The next step is also a pretty simple one. You'll write up your idea in a 2-page concept note, and you'll submit it to us. We're asking for these by July 2nd, so you still got a couple weeks to work on this and get it into us. If it looks really promising, we'll ask you for a full proposal, and then we'll do a couple of interviews. And at the end of the day, if things look great, we start writing checks so that you can get out in the field and put your idea into action.
Is there just one winner, or are there multiple potential winners?
We have a lot of winners, so we're willing to fund any great idea. During our last competition, we had 10 different winners. Our first competition had 5 different winners. So I would not be surprised if we saw up to 15 different winners for this round of the competition.
Oh, that's fantastic. Nick, where is this money coming from?
We're funded primarily by a few folks here in the San Francisco Bay Area who want to put their money to good use. We also get some foundation funding. So D-Prize is a nonprofit, and so we're helping people that want to make a difference in the world start these organizations that could really make an enormous difference.
Well, fantastic. Nick, thank you very much for being with us today. And remind everyone what the URL is. Where do they go to make the application again?
They can go to dprize.com.
And how is D-Prize written out?
d-prize.com.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you very, very much, Nick. Really appreciate your time today.
Well, Devin, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to see a bunch of entrepreneurs make their mark on the world.
No, thank you. It's a pleasure to have you. Let's do some good.